I stand against FGM.
I am against FGM.
I'm against FGM.
I am against FGM.
I'm against FGM.
FGM stands for Female Genital Mutilation. According to the World Health Organization, it's all the procedures that involves partial or total removal of the external female genitalia or other injury to the female genital organs for non-medical reasons. This video provides basic but crucial information for health and community services workers. We're hoping that it will inspire you to support women and girls at risk and or affected by FGM with the aim to eradicate it. Before we go any further, I'd like to share with you some important messages that every worker should be aware of. The first one, please do not stereotype. Never assume that just because a woman comes from a specific country that she would have a particular type of FGM. Secondly, please be aware that many women affected by FGM don't actually know the exact procedure that was used on them. Therefore, we must be very respectful of the language we use when we work with clients, as many communities or women refer to it as female circumcision or even cutting. Even though this resource does not provide clinical guidelines on how to work with women and girls affected by FGM, please refer to the many links in the information below this video. Before we learn about the 4 types of FGM, let's review the typical anatomy of the female genital organs. For the purpose of understanding FGM, we will be talking about the clitoris, which is located at the top of the female genitalia area. It provides the primary source of sexual pleasure. The opening of the vagina and the urethral opening for passing urine. The labia minora, which is the inside folded skin that provides protection to the clitoris, and the opening of the vagina and the opening where we pass urine. The labia majora is, on the other hand, the outside folded skin that is thicker in nature, and it is there to protect the whole female genitalia. The first type of FGM is called clitoridectomy. It is the partial or total removal of the clitoris and or the prepuce. Type 2, it involves partial or total removal of the clitoris and the labia minora with or without the removal of the labia majora. The third type of FGM, which is also the most severe one, is called infibulation. Infibulation involves the partial or total removal of the labia minora and or the labia majora, where the whole area is stitched together, leaving one little opening to pass urine and vaginal fluids. The fourth type of FGM, which may be perceived to be less traumatic, but it's still quite harmful. It involves, for example, piercing, scraping, or searing the genital area and or introduction of corrosive substances into the vagina.
The World Health Organization recognizes FGM as a form of gender-based violence as it violates the human rights of women and children. FGM is a harmful cultural practice that has no health benefit whatsoever and continues to perpetuate gender inequality. The exact number of girls and women who have undergone FGM remains unknown. It's estimated that at least 200 million girls have been cut in over 30 countries across the world. There has been an overall decline in the prevalence of the practice over the last few decades. However, not all countries have made equal progress. FGM has become more prevalent in the diaspora, including countries such as Australia, because people bring the practice with them upon arrival. This map is an example of how prevalent FGM is. As you can see, it's mostly practiced in African countries, but We should not categorize it as an African problem. FGM is also practiced in Asian countries and some countries in the Middle East, and it requires all of us to stand up and speak against it. For an infographic, factual information cited at the UNICEF website, please refer to the following link. This link will provide quick reference to information about where FGM is practiced, how prevalent it is, what age it starts, and also how women feel about FGM. I stand against FGM because females should have autonomy over their own bodies and should not be robbed of such an essential part of their being.
There are short-term and long-term health risks associated with FGM. The severity of those risks associated with a number of factors. There is no particular person that performs FGM. It can be an elder, a relative, a herbalist, a medical professional, and many others. Therefore, the expertise of the person can have a huge impact on what and how much to cut and how to prevent infections. Often, FGM is carried out using knives, razors, or any sharp item that is available around the household. The procedures takes usually 15 to 20 minutes, and often they don't use any substances to numb the area, which can make the procedures quite traumatic. And after the procedures, they might use either alcohol or lemon juice or any other herbals to help the wound to heal quicker. There are many short-term health risks. I specifically like to highlight the trauma, the excessive bleeding which can lead to death, the possibility of infections to the wound, but also possibility of causing viral infections that can have long-term implications such as viral hepatitis B and C. This slide shows those risks that are mentioned by the World Health Organization, such as recurrent urine infection, all sorts of vaginal problems, pain and difficulties passing blood-urine menstruation, the scarring of the area, and the woman's bodily integrity, which can also add to the psychological problems that they may develop as a result of the traumatic experience. Finally, FGM can cause reduced sexual pleasure and pain during intercourse. Please keep in mind though that certain risks are more associated with the type of FGM performed, namely with type 3 in relation to childbirth complications, especially if the woman had endured more than one child, thus having to be reopened and closed on numerous times. In Australia, it is illegal to stitch women up. This was legislated because there is an increased risk for the mother and the baby during childbirth. This includes excessive bleeding and/or the need to resuscitate the baby.
People use either cultural or religious factors to justify the practice of FGM within their communities. However, FGM is solely cultural and is not connected to any religion. One of the religions FGM is wrongly associated with is Islam. For example, it's believed that it is a religious practice because some of the Muslim majority countries, such as Egypt and Somalia, practice FGM at a high rate. However, other Muslim majority countries, such as Pakistan and Jordan, practice FGM at a lower rate. FGM is a harmful cultural practice that has been passed down through generations, and the reason why this practice has continued to the modern times is people who practice FGM feel a sense of upholding and preserving their culture identity.
As men, we do have a role and responsibility to stand up and speak against FGM. Even though we do not carry out the procedures and are not subjected to the long-term consequences of FGM, we need to realize that we are the fathers, brothers, and husbands of the victims. By remaining silent as a man, you are consenting to having your daughter go through FGM. The FGM itself is gradually declining in some countries, like where I come from. The need and call to stop FGM cannot be seen as a challenge to culture. We must give careful consideration to the plight of women, their liberty, autonomy, and long-term implications of FGM.
As you can see, there are many reasons as to why so many people still perform FGM, but none of these reasons are based on any religion. It's mainly culturally rooted practice.
So there are 4 major efforts that have been established to eradicate FGM in Australia. There are human rights movements, which means that all activities that are there to advocate for no FGM and acknowledge that FGM is harmful and violates women's rights to equality, integrity and self-realization. FGM is a threat to their safety, to their health, free life, and that's a violation of basic human rights. It also involves activities that empower those most affected by FGM to break the silence and speak up. The second effort is the legislation. FGM is illegal in Australia. The law prohibits FGM as defined. The law prohibits taking a child out of Australia for the purpose of FGM. It is a child protection issue and it requires mandatory notification. And I'll talk a bit more about that later. The penalty for breaching Australian FGM laws can lead to serious consequences such as imprisonment. The law allows for medical procedures with genuine therapeutic purpose. Healthcare professionals should be aware of the implications of the legislation and should refer to the state legislation for more information. The third effort is community awareness and education. So all the activities that can provide communities with information to challenge the discrimination against girls and women and to challenge the harmful traditions do fall into the community awareness and education. There are certain links that we are providing for you to gather more information on that. And the last bit is where we have policies, guidelines and support services to support women and girls affected by FGM. In almost every state and territory, there are programs dedicated to working with diverse communities around the issue of FGM in Australia. Each of these programs can also provide information and referrals to help women make a decision about reversing the FGM or care for themselves and their children. To find out more information, there are some links that can help you further.
Health support that is available through the Migrant Health Service and/or Shine SA can be advice, information and referral for de-infibulation, pregnancy and birth planning, cervical screening, young women and girls approaching menstruation, counseling. FGM is sometimes referred to as cutting or female circumcision as a substitute when inquiring about health risks. Though let's not forget that FGM in Australia is defined by law as a gross violation of human rights. However, professionals who deal with victims of FGM are urged to ask their client what language they are comfortable and familiar with. There are still many women and girls that are highly affected by FGM here in Australia, especially those who have one or both parents that come from cultural background where FGM is accepted and performed. Another indication of girls at risk is when a mother, older sister, cousin has had FGM. Furthermore, we should really pay attention if a mother or a father express their views of valuing this practice. It is extremely important when assessing risk factors that the blame should never be put on any particular individual or family, but rather you should talk about the actual practice of FGM.
Now I'm going to talk about the mandatory reporting and concerns about a child at risk. Professionals are legally obligated to report any concerns of FGM. Refer to the mandatory reporting guidelines of each state for more information. If you are concerned about a child at risk, ensure that the appropriate authorities are contacted. In an emergency, dial 000 and ask for the police. You can call Child Abuse Report Line or go to the following link and report online.
The production of this video is to educate workers about FGM, help them identify those with increased risk of FGM in Australia, and inform them about the Australian law, and to inform them of the many available local resources. This video was produced by Relationships Australia South Australia, and we would like to thank all those who helped in the production of this resource.